That's right. The Mexican government contacted me about one of my videos. Not gonna lie, it was a little scary. It was about my video on the Visitax, and it was actually the government of Quintana Roo, where Cancun is located. And really, it was a representative of a company that Quintana Roo has hired to help them implement this Visitax. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, or you don't know what the Visitax is, then you definitely probably want to check out the other video that I did about the Visitax, because even though they contacted me to say that some of the information was wrong there, it does give you a very good basic understanding of what it is. But we're also going to go over that in this video because there's still so much confusion behind it. In fact, even after I did that video, if I'm being honest, I'm still confused by it. And people are reporting, even as of today, that no one's checking it. It's not being enforced. They don't know how to pay it. They think they already paid it. So I decided, you know what? Let me go directly to the source. And I asked them, hey, would you be willing to come on our channel and really clarify more about the Visitax? And guess what? They agreed. So in this video, I'm going to be interviewing this representative about the Visitax so that he can clarify a lot of the misconceptions. We can really find out what this is, if we really need to pay this. Is this a scam or what? He's going to tell us everything that we need to know from the source about the Visitax. Thank you for being here. I know this is very different content. My viewers are used to me giving a resort review, giving travel information. So I really come from the perspective of the tourist. So we're not a travel agent. People really trust my information because I think that's the way I come from. But the Visitax is like making us pull our hair out, especially people that frequent Cancun, because it's so confusing. So I thought this conversation, even though the content is different, is going to be really important because you are actually contracted from the state of Quintana Roo to kind of sort all of this out. So this is Tim Scurry. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role in the Visitax?
Okay, so can I just give a quick background on
Please, yeah,
Visitax?
absolutely.
Okay, so April 2021 was when the tax first came into play during the pandemic. It had a number of different parameters around the law at that time, but that all changed in December of 2022, on December the 23rd, when the state put in something called Article 51 Octis. And basically what it did is it removed all of the age exemptions, and it basically said that Visitax became a right, which when you read into law, what that means is that the law is now mandatory, and therefore Visitax is now mandatory. Now, from December through to, let's say, July 10th, and July 10th this year is another important date, the tax was kind of implemented, but it's very spotty in terms of its implementation, and there was a lot of confusion as to whether you should use the government website, whether you should use what are called authorized collection sites. And generally speaking, the whole thing became confusing because the authorized collection sites were all charging different amounts of money. And on top of that, you then had non-authorized collection sites that were charging different amounts of money again. So, when you do a Google search for Visitax, it's absolutely a nightmare because you've got so many different links coming up, all using GOB in the name, which is GUB, .mx, Visitax, QR, all these kinds of things are designed to kind of get you into that site and then pay the tax.
I think it's important, though. Let me stop you real quick. And I did a video about Visitax. That's how we came in contact. Yeah. I think actually when you Google it, mine comes up. The Visitax, correct me if I'm wrong, it's actually going to restore what the tourists love about Cancun. So it is going towards the restoration, right, of some of the tourist areas.
Yeah. So, and it's becoming evident now that those projects are already getting delivered.
Yeah.
So, the governor and the president of Mexico were quite active this weekend, taking the inaugural ride on the Mayan train. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also talking about the roads and infrastructure and how far they are on completion. So these guys have, in effect, put a lot of money into improving the things which people were really complaining about. The traffic, how difficult it is to get to the airport, from Cancun North Hotel Zone to South Hotel Zone, which will be solved by the bridge. How you get to Chichen, so on and so forth. I mean, all of these things they're really addressing, but not just for the tourists. I want to say that they're addressing these for the people that actually work in the resorts, because it's actually quite tough for these people to actually get to and from work. Just at the hotel I'm staying here now, the staff, it takes an hour and a half for them to get home after work, and it's a 12-hour shift. That's not funny.
People, I mean, you have to understand from our point of view, if you are a tourist of Cancun, but there's so many scams that we have to constantly be aware of, and we pay all these taxes. So I'm sure you can understand the hesitance, the reluctance, the like, this isn't real kind of feeling that people have when it comes to this. Because I think the ultimate question is, why do they have to hire a company? Like, for instance, in the US or wherever you're from, like, there's a tax, they put it on a product, like, what is the difficulty here?
Well, it isn't particularly simple to administer a tax program like this, because, of course, the law states that you must pay the tax before you depart. So there are many opportunities for people to pay the tax. And why it was done that way is because the government here didn't really want to create chaos at the airport by either putting a restriction with you coming in and therefore making the entry lines higher or longer. And they also didn't want to get into starting to deny boarding if you haven't paid the tax. So bearing in mind that the delivery of this was quite spotty at the beginning of the year, there is now a phased program which allows people to basically just get used to the idea of doing this. Mm-hmm. And that has to be carefully managed. So all of the messaging around it, knowing, for instance, that it's clearly explained, making sure that when you go to pay the tax, there is someone on the other end of live chat or email that's going to assist you through the process. And also with the follow-ups, what happens if you don't get your QR code? What happens if your flight's delayed? Who do you go to get that support? The other aspect of this was also to provide a means of getting your QR code in a safe environment. And email's fine, but it's got its flaws, which is why, as part of this program, you also get an app which allows you to download your QR code into that app. And, there's a safety concern about that because it's got passport data encrypted in it. And the other issue is that, we're aware that travelers don't have data or Wi-Fi, and it's not always simple for them to pull up a QR code if they have to access the internet each time to get it. So really, our program is really very well organized. I mean, we are a Canadian company of repute. The systems that we have built are robust, they're scalable, and the contact centers that we utilize are fairly extensive. And as you've probably seen already as well, our interfaces are offered in multiple different languages. So we offer in English, Spanish, and French. And French, of course, is being important for Canadians.
Two questions is, how is it different from what we're already paying? And then why can't the airlines just add it?
Okay, well, adding another tax, and I'm not talking on behalf of the state here, Blanche. I hope, so this is my summation of the situation, is that when you add a tax via the airline, number one, it takes forever to get the airlines agree to do it, and they do not want to do it.
Right.
End of story.
It makes their fees look like they're higher.
It does that. Is also a considerable systems cost for each of the travel providers and airlines to actually facilitate that. And there is no extra money for them to be made by collecting that tax. It's just a huge, huge nightmare. The second issue is that you've got to look at where the money is being collected. This is a state tax, not a federal tax.
Yeah, that's the confusion too, I think. So maybe explain that.
Yeah, this is state law, not federal law. So, and it is specifically for the use of the assets of the state. That's what it's for. So, in that, what the law is saying is that when the money is collected, it is reinvested in the state. It's not being appropriated by the federal government. It's very local, and it's very specific to Quintana Roo. And we can see already some of the fruits of investments that they've been making in Quintana Roo. Just, well, as we earlier said, roads, trains, the new airport in Tulum, as an example, the train connecting Cancun to Tulum, all of these things.
I guess the other question too is, like, for instance, I went to the airport. There was a kiosk. The guy handed me a flyer. So on my video, like, that's the information I provided for everyone. This is the QR code. And then you're telling me that's not the right website. So it's like, you see why we're pulling our hair out. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, so there's a group, a Facebook group, which I don't know if you guys want to get on or your people get on, Cancun, just group. Someone just posted, like, what's this Visitax? And then everyone starts, I'm not paying it. No one checked it. It's a money grab. Oh, there's no such thing. We already paid it in the airline fees. And it's mind-boggling why it can't be more clear. And people aren't paying it. Like, people tell me all the time, like, I'm not paying it. No one checked, you know?
Okay. Again, trying to address the tourist side of this.
Yes.
Let me make it quite clear. So Visitax is a law where there's no option to pay it or not to pay it. So most people then...
It's a mandatory law.
It's a mandatory law. Yes. It is a law, end of story. And so when you don't pay it, you break the law. That's it. Now, what is the consequence of breaking the law? That's the next thing that people usually ask. Well, if nobody asked to see it, then of course I can get away without paying it because it's a grab or so on and so forth. Well, the reality is that over the next few months, that is not going to be the case. Okay, mm-hmm. The reality is that you are going to see more and more and more people, specifically at the airport, asking to see your QR code. And that's going to present a little bit of a problem, because if everybody tries to pay their QR code at the airport at the last minute because they're worried about breaking the law, then, you know, Wi-Fi and data is going to fall to pieces, and people are going to have scrambling to try and pay. So our job is to get you aware that the tax has to be paid at any time before you leave. You shouldn't be leaving it until you get to the airport. It's probably easier to get it out of the way before you even come to the destination. But as a last resort, if you haven't paid the tax before you leave, then you will end up being enforced.
Now, can you clarify the official website? So obviously I'm going to include that in the description below, but is there an official website? Also, how much is this tax? And
so there are two sites. There is a government website, and I can send you that link so that it's absolutely clear. And at the moment, the government site charges about 15.25 bucks US when you do the conversion to pesos from to USD. And then there is the authorized travel course site, which charges $18.80. These two sites will align on price very soon. So there will be no difference whether you go to the government site or whether you go to the travel course site. The travel corps has no say in that $18.80 USD. We are instructed that that is the amount that we must collect. So we have no control over the pricing at all. And the actual tax will likely change by a small amount each year, because the factor that they're using to calculate the tax is set by the federal government each year. So it's gone up slightly this year from what it was last year, and probably because of cost of living, it'll end up going up a little bit next year as well. But all of these things are explained on our frequently asked questions section in 3 different languages. And if anybody's got a problem, deciding whether they want to pay the tax or, right at that time, they can always use our live chat on our interface, and they can always email us at our support line, and they will be handled straight away. We've got people there 24 hours on our support line and 12 hours a day on our live chat.
Right. And everybody, so it's no longer age restriction. So if you're traveling with a 6-month-old, they have to pay it.
Yep. There's only one exception, Blanche, and that is if you're entering the state through the southern border.
Okay. So
that's the only exception.
What if you're a Mexican citizen, though, coming in from the U.S.?
Mexican citizens are absolutely fine. Mexican citizens do not have to pay the tax. The tax is aimed at international visitors.
International visitors. Okay. And I'm sure you can understand like the feeling that this still feels like a scam for people, especially in Mexico, the corrupt government and all the kind of things. So how do we know that you're even telling us is true?
Oh, okay. Well, what we did was we had translated all of the documents. You remember I mentioned earlier on that there was another significant thing that occurred on July the 10th.
Yes.
2023. This was actually a communication from SATQ, who are the tax authorities here in the state. And we had that document translated into English, which we are happy to make available to people, which explains what the communication says. But what that communication says is that all travel providers, by law, must notify their customers of the existence of this tax, and also they must provide information on a safe link to pay the tax. Now, the idea of that is to make sure that you are given the correct information, so that you're then not getting hit by any of these scam sites. Okay. So we've been working with the airlines and the travel providers. The actual travel agencies have been absolutely superb and moved really, really, really quick. And the airlines are taking their time because they're doing their due diligence, of course. And I'm here doing interviews like this with yourself, which I'm very pleased to be doing. And also doing interviews in the media and making sure that people have a path directly back to me to ask any questions. So I make myself available, for instance, on TripAdvisor. I do that. It's from me personally. And, if anybody's concerned about, it being a scam, it not being the law, at the end of the day, they can ask me directly if they choose to.
So is there a definite date, do you know, where they'll be at the airport checking it, saying you better have this, or is that July?
It's already starting. Okay. So as of, and I'm making an announcement this week that the Travel Core collection interface is changing, such that if you're entering a departure date, which is after you've departed, you've kind of got 48 hours to pay the tax. Now, the reason is that at the airport, you will get reminded, and you may not be able to deal with paying the tax because of Wi-Fi or data. Mm-hmm. So it's a reminder for at least the next 4 weeks.
And my subscribers know that I respond to all comments and questions. So if, even with this, if you have a question for Tim or whatever, put it in the comments below. And if I can't answer it, I'll have Tim answer it. So I definitely appreciate your time. And just going to put it out there, if you know anybody in Quintana Roo, like the governor or whoever, that would love to talk, we'd love to talk to them too directly if they're willing.
I will pass that straight on.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Tim. Enjoy your travels in Cancun. I don't know, how much longer are you there?
About another week, I think.
Well, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Hopefully the weather's been good for you. And you can do something other than sit in your hotel room.
I'll try.
All right. All right. Take care. So I would love to know your thoughts about this interview in the comment section below. And if you follow me, you know I never try to influence you to do anything. I just try to give you the information and you can make your own decisions. I do think we finally have all of the answers now on what the visit tax is, what it's going towards, who needs to pay it, how much it costs, and how to securely pay it. Now I'm going back to Cancun in January, so I will definitely do an updated video on the visit tax then. I will pay it through the links that he has provided, and I will tell you how they're enforcing it at the airport and give you more about this process.